Meet Kitty. She's just a regular American girl who left her entire life behind to move to South Korea for high school. She went out there because it's the exact same school her mom used to go to. But ironically, ever since she stepped foot in Korea, the only thing she's actually mastered is destroying relationships. Every single time she falls for a guy, she eventually realizes he's just not the one. Now, the guy standing right in front of her is Minho. He's basically the iconic Korean guy who has it all. He's handsome, rich, ambitious, and on top of everything else, he's completely in love with her. The problem is she's rejected him multiple times before, so now she's way too embarrassed to admit that she's suddenly caught feelings for him too. Since her flight back home is only a few hours away because the semester just ended, she tries to gather her courage, but instead of just looking at him and saying, "I like you," she panics. She ends up telling him, "I could spend the whole summer with you and we can travel together on your world tour." See, Minho actually works as the manager for their friend Eunice, who's a singer. Hearing this, he gets so happy that he immediately thinks there must be a catch. He asks her, "Wait, are you really going to travel with me?" In that split second, she gets nervous and completely backtracks. She plays it off like, "Wait, travel? No, you misunderstood. I just meant we should spend today together." Right then, Eunice jumps into the conversation looking super excited. She announces that the opening concert is happening today in Busan. Kitty jumps on this instantly. She acts like, "Yes, exactly. That's what I was talking about. Let's spend the whole day together before my flight tomorrow." Even though Minho knows she just backed out because she was nervous, he just goes along with it. He reminds her that she's going to need to change her clothes since the party is on a yacht and she needs something a little more dressed up. She heads back to her room feeling really excited. She figures she has at least 14 hours left to finally confess her feelings to him. When she walks in, she finds her best friend Q waiting for her. He wants to know exactly how it went. She admits that, as usual, she froze up and couldn't even put two words together. So she begs him to come to the party with her and help out, before she messes things up even more. At first, he refuses because he has practice. But after thinking it over, he figures, why not? It might be nice to get out and change the scenery. He just has one condition. He wants to bring their friend Jin along too. Meanwhile, in a totally different spot, we see Yuri out shopping with her friends. She's supposed to be one of the richest girls in school. But recently, her dad hit a rough patch, and her whole family is basically on the edge of going broke. Of course, she's hiding all of this from her friends because she's terrified of ruining her image. So the minute she hears about the yacht party, she sees it as the perfect distraction from everything going on at home. Back with the guys, Q is busy convincing Jin to come to the party. Suddenly, their friend Dae chimes in and asks if he can tag along too. Turns out Dae has a secret crush on Eunice and is just looking for any excuse to get closer to her. On the ride there, Eunice sits right in the middle between Kitty and Minho. She's just so thrilled to have them around. Then she casually drops the news that she invited the other girls to spend the day with them too. When Minho realizes the guys are coming too, because Kitty invited them, he gets pretty annoyed. He thought she set all this up so they could finally spend some time alone. He just can't figure out why she keeps sending him these mixed signals. Once they make it to Busan and everyone groups up for a sightseeing tour, Kitty and Minho can't get a single moment alone. There are just way too many friends surrounding them. Finally, an opportunity opens up when they go to ride the cable cars. Q steps up and plays the role of the perfect best friend, stalling the rest of the group as much as he can so no one else gets in the same car as Kitty and Minho. Inside the car, Kitty notices that Minho looks really tense. She starts feeling a little too confident, thinking he's nervous just because she looks that good. But the second she opens her mouth, she ruins it. She blurts out, "I really value our friendship." That makes him pull back even more. He's thinking, friendship? Really? At a moment like this? Suddenly, he gets a call from his dad. His dad tells him he's willing to give him a chance to manage Eunice's career all by himself. But there's a catch. He has to prove himself at today's party. Minho gets incredibly hyped, since he's been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time. So he has to apologize to Kitty and rush off to the yacht to make sure everything is prepped. She totally understands though and just tells herself they still have a few hours left. Later, when she arrives at the party, she finds him looking super stressed. It's his first time ever stepping out in front of a real crowd. She walks up to him and says, "If you ever feel like you're losing control up there, just look right at me. I'll be listening to every single word you say." He's genuinely touched to have her there for a moment like this. And then, of course, he has to run off to finish setting things up. Kitty tries her hardest to act mature and keep it together, but she finally hits her breaking point. She overhears a group of girls whispering about how unbelievable Minho looks tonight. And to make things worse, her own dress actually looks exactly like a waitress uniform. It's so bad that people literally keep calling her over to refill their drinks. Yuri catches her in the middle of this mess. She looks at her and asks, "Are you seriously going to confess to him looking like a ship captain?" She tells Kitty to follow her down to a room full of dresses. If they just borrow one, she figures no one will even notice. The second Kitty changes into a new dress, she feels like a completely different person. She thanks Yuri and immediately runs off to find Minho. This is the perfect moment to finally tell him how she feels. Meanwhile, Yuri gets a text from her mom that turns her whole world upside down. Her mom warns her to go hide somewhere away from her friends. In just a few minutes, the news of their family's bankruptcy is going public. Right around then, Minho steps out on stage to introduce Eunice. But nobody in the crowd is even looking up. Everyone is glued to their phones, reading the bankruptcy news that just went viral. Seeing the dead crowd, Minho starts to panic. Then he spots Kitty standing right in the front row. The anxiety just fades away, and he smoothly finishes his intro. But then a brand new problem pops up. The dress Kitty borrowed happens to be the exact same dress Eunice is supposed to wear. And since Kitty is basically destined to be publicly humiliated, the dress is actually highly advanced. It changes lighting in sync with the beat of the song the artist is dancing to. So there she is, glowing to the beat, while everyone around her starts whispering. They call her a thief and quickly figure out she stole it from the dressing room. She sprints away to find a hiding spot before she completely ruins the event. While running away, she bumps into Yuri. Seeing Yuri's situation makes Kitty's own embarrassment feel a little smaller. She asks Yuri why she hid her family's struggles. She reminds her that they are friends no matter what, rich or poor. She waits for things to settle down, then goes to finally talk to Minho. Unfortunately, his dad intercepts her, and just like every rich dad in the movies, he gives her the classic speech. He tells her his son is from a different world than she is, and basically warns her to stay away since she doesn't have any money. His words hit her hard. To her, this is the final sign that a relationship with Minho is impossible. She just turns around and walks away in silence, but Minho runs after her. He tells her he's tired of the mixed signals. "You keep giving me hope, and then you just pull it away." He asks her point blank if she actually wants to be with him or not. She finally breaks her silence and confesses how she feels. But there's a catch. She can't spend the summer vacation with him after all. Her sister Lara Jean just went through a bad breakup, so Kitty has to fly back and stay with her for the summer. He totally understands. Family always comes first. Plus, he figures it's only 3 months and time will fly by. 3 months pass. Kitty is basically eating herself alive with stress. Minho barely checked in on her the entire time they were apart. And to make it worse, his social media is full of travel pictures where he's surrounded by girls since that's just the nature of his job. Lara Jean starts feeling pretty guilty. She assumes Kitty is upset because she had to spend her whole summer comforting her through a breakup. But Kitty reassures her, saying that's just what sisters do. Besides, the summer is officially over. She and Minho will be back at school soon to finally start their romance. Lara Jean gives her a notebook as a gift to journal her entire senior year. This is the year she needs to discover herself and figure out if she wants to stay in Korea for college or apply to NYU instead. When Kitty gets back to Korea, she runs into her cousin, Ji-yoon. She can hardly believe Ji-yoon is actually a Korean literature teacher now. She jokes that she'll have to act all formal around her in front of the other students. The very first thing on Kitty's senior year bucket list is defining her confusing relationship with Minho. She goes to meet him, hoping they can finally make up for 3 months apart. But she doesn't even get to enjoy the moment. A guy on a motorcycle suddenly pulls up. The second Minho sees him, he gets incredibly hyped and runs over to greet him. This turns out to be Marius, the fourth guy in their friend group who was away traveling and just got back. Kitty takes it pretty personally. Marius didn't just ruin her big moment. He actually steals Minho away entirely, dragging him back to their dorm room to catch up on everything they missed. And since bad news always comes in waves, the principal calls her into his office. Her grades have been slipping. He tells her she has to take an extra class to pull her GPA up. If she doesn't, she'll lose her scholarship and have to find a new school. Later, when she stops by Minho's room and the whole crew is hanging out, she makes a suggestion. Since it's the start of a brand new semester, she wants everyone to pull an all-nighter together and watch the sunrise. Marius is incredibly rude about it. He completely ignores Kitty's idea and announces to the group that they're going to throw a secret party tonight in the faculty office. Since all the teachers will be in the other building, he figures they won't get caught. Surprisingly, everyone else gets really excited about his plan. Kitty is furious. She walks out of the room and immediately starts texting all her friends to plan her sunrise hangout instead. She's determined to do things her way, but Yuri replies saying she can't make it, promising to explain everything later. Kitty heads straight to Yuri's house to figure out what's going on. Yuri breaks the news. Her dad only has $5 million left to their name for living expenses. "Do you really think I have $20 million laying around for tuition?" she asks. Kitty tries to brainstorm and suggests, "What if we sell some of your designer clothes? You could easily make way more than $20 million." But Yuri immediately shoots that down. She treats her clothes like they're her own children. Kitty gives her a reality check. She reminds her that her education and staying at the school with her friends are definitely more important than some clothes. Once Kitty sees that Yuri is finally starting to cave, she tells her they're going to sell the clothes at tonight's party. Later that night, Day notices how genuinely upset Yuri is about selling her wardrobe. She's trying hard to play it off, acting like it's just clothes and it doesn't matter. But the second one of her friends walks up and asks to buy the shoes right off her feet. Yuri panics and snaps, "Absolutely not. Anything but these." Meanwhile, Marius is getting increasingly annoyed by how much influence Kitty has over his friends. He actively keeps pressuring Minho to drink, hoping he'll be too hungover to wake up for Kitty's sunrise plan. Kitty is already jealous of Marius. Ever since he showed up, she hasn't been able to spend 5 uninterrupted minutes with Minho. She channels all her stubborn energy, walks right up to Marius, and challenges him to a drinking game. If she wins, they shut down the party and head up to the roof to watch the sunrise. Marius gets super hyped about it and says, "Let's go, Kathy." She gets even more irritated because he can't even get her name right. The game starts and Kitty is actually doing pretty well. But right as she's about to throw the final ball, she spots Ji-yoon standing at the door calling her name. Kitty panics, throws the ball completely off target, and loses the game. But honestly, the game is the least of her worries right now. She rushes over to Ji-yoon to see what's wrong. Ji-yoon is absolutely furious. She warns Kitty that if anyone finds out they're throwing a party with alcohol on school grounds, it's going to be a massive scandal. She gives Kitty exactly 10 minutes to shut the whole thing down. Kitty sprints back inside, jumps onto a chair, and grabs the microphone. She announces that the teachers are on their way to the building. Everyone scrambles, cleans up the evidence, and rushes back to their dorms. Minho notices how upset Kitty is and follows her. She takes the opportunity to completely unload on him. She tells him she had a whole bucket list for her senior year that she wanted to accomplish. But ever since his friend showed up, everything has been falling apart. She admits she was waiting for him to step up and define their relationship. But apparently you just want to keep things confusing, she says, before turning around and walking away. Right before falling asleep, Kitty remembers another massive problem. She completely forgot to register for her extra class. When she checks online, she's horrified to see that every single class is full, except for Korean literature. This is a disaster because it's a notoriously difficult class, but she has absolutely no other choice. Around 5:30 in the morning, her phone buzzes with texts. Yuri is asking her to come up to the roof for something important. When Kitty gets up there, she's shocked to see all her friends gathered together to watch the sunrise and fulfill her wish. And on top of that, Yuri actually managed to raise the money and already paid her tuition. It turns out Minho is the one who organized the whole thing. He wanted to prove to her with actions that he really does care. He looks at her and says, "I spent the entire summer dreaming about the moment we'd finally be back together." Kitty is completely overjoyed that he finally said it out loud. On the flip side, Marius is seething. He's furious that Kitty stole his thunder. He pulls out his phone and calls a girl named Gigi. He tells her, "Our friend has a little problem and needs your help. How about you come down to the school?" He hangs up with a huge smirk, thrilled that he finally found a way to destroy Kitty and Minho's budding relationship. A month goes by and Kitty is on cloud 9. Things between her and Minho are going great, and they're getting closer every single day. But she gets a harsh reality check when she sees her grades in Korean literature. She's been totally distracted by love, and to make it worse, Ji-yoon just assigned a 10-page paper on the Japanese occupation of Korea, and it's due next week. Kitty waits for class to end so she can pull her cousin aside. She asks if it's possible to push her report deadline back another week. Her logic? Minho is about to shoot Eunice's first music video, and she really wants to be the supportive girlfriend who stays by his side. But Ji-yoon isn't having it. She tells her that ever since she got into this relationship, she's lost her focus. She warns Kitty that if she doesn't get it together, she's actually going to fail the class. Right in the middle of their talk, Professor Alex walks in. It's pretty obvious he's just looking for any excuse to talk to Ji-yoon. Kitty notices the vibe immediately, and she realizes this might be the perfect way to get her cousin to go easy on her. Later, Kitty heads to the library to catch a few minutes with Minho before she has to disappear into her report. But suddenly, this stunning girl walks in. Everything about her just screams sophisticated. She walks right up to Kitty and asks where she can find Minho. The second Minho shows up, he greets her, a little too warmly. Kitty just stands there, feeling completely invisible. He introduces her as Gigi, a close family friend. Apparently, they basically grew up together. Plus, Gigi is working as an assistant for the fashion designer, Iso, the one in charge of Eunice's wardrobe for the video. Marius sees them and makes sure to play up how happy he is that Gigi is back. He starts bringing up old memories of the three of them, right in front of Kitty. Then he drops a subtle bomb. He makes sure Kitty knows they aren't just family friends. Gigi was actually Minho's first love. Because of that, Kitty spends her entire day scrolling through Gigi's Instagram. She's trying to figure out exactly how deep their history goes. Yuri tries to talk her down, telling her that just because she was a first love doesn't mean she's a threat now. He's moved on, right? But Kitty's head is already spinning. She decides to change the subject and tells Yuri that the designer Iso is looking for a third assistant. She suggests Yuri come to the music video shoot, hoping she can get close to her and land the job. At the end of the day, Kitty goes to Minho's room feeling pretty excited. They had plans for a date tonight, but she finds him all dressed up in a suit, looking way too sharp. He tells her they can't go out after all. Work issues came up, and he has to go meet Gigi right now. Kitty starts a mini interrogation. "How long have you two been friends? When was the last time you actually saw each other?" Minho is surprised by all the questions. He tries to reassure her that there's nothing going on between him and Gigi. "We're just friends," he says. Kitty feels a little better, mostly because he seems to actually understand why she's worried. On the next day at the shoot, Kitty tries to play matchmaker. She brings Ji-yoon and Professor Alex together, hoping that if Ji-yoon gets swept up in her own romance, she'll forget all about that report deadline. As for Kitty, she's there to support her boyfriend's career, but in typical Kitty fashion, she tries to help and ends up making everything worse. She brings some juice for Eunice to help her calm down and spills it all over her dress. The whole set goes into a panic. Eunice can't wear anything else, and the entire shoot is on the line. But Yuri steps in and saves the day. She grabs a piece of extra fabric and adds it to the dress, and it blends in so perfectly you can't even tell. Gigi is so impressed by her quick thinking that she offers Yuri a job right then and there. Meanwhile, Minho notices Eunice is avoiding Day every time he tries to talk to her. He pulls Day aside and gives him a reality check. "You need to back off for a bit," he says. "I'm pretty sure she's seeing someone else." Dae is crushed, but he appreciates his friend being real with him. Later, Kitty pulls Minho aside to apologize for the juice disaster. She admits the truth. "Ever since your friend showed up, I've been feeling threatened." Minho reassures her for the 50th time. He tells her he's happy they're together and he doesn't need anyone else. "It's enough for me that you believe in me," he says. But then things take a turn with Ji-yoon. Kitty finds her standing alone. Alex left because the school has strict rules against teachers dating each other. Ji-yoon realizes Kitty was only meddling in her love life to get an extension on her report. She tells Kitty that even if she was trying to help, she had no right to interfere in her private life like that. Kitty feels a massive wave of guilt. She didn't mean to put her cousin in such a mess. A week goes by. Kitty is sitting in her literature exam. She's trying to stay positive and focus as hard as she can. She knows this is it. The only way she gets to stay in this school is if she passes this test. After she finishes her exam, Yuri walks up and hands her an old photograph. It's a picture of both their moms hanging out together at an amusement park. And standing right there with them is Professor Lee, the principal. It turns out they were all in the same graduating class and used to be close friends. Later on, Principal Lee gathers all the seniors to announce their big end-of-year trip. Everyone gets hyped, hoping they're going somewhere amazing. But he instantly kills the mood when he announces a trip to the Korean Museum. Kitty decides she has to step in. She suggests going to the amusement park instead, arguing that it'll get everyone moving and be good exercise. She walks up and shows him the old photo of him and her mom. The nostalgia totally hits him, and to everyone's surprise, he actually agrees. The next day, the whole crew is incredibly excited for the trip. Eunice is practically bouncing off the walls because her music video just racked up a massive amount of views. Famous artists are even starting to follow her online. Minho is thrilled. He never expected her career to take off this fast. Caught up in the excitement, Minho tells Kitty he's actually thinking about going to college right here in Korea so he can keep managing Eunice. He asks her what her plans are. Kitty is deeply touched. She realizes how seriously he's taking their relationship if he's actively planning his future around her. But internally, she's completely torn between staying in Korea or moving back to New York with her sister. Once they arrive at the amusement park, Kitty spots the exact same roller coaster from her mom's photo. Instantly, she backs out. It just looks terrifying. Marius makes it worse by teasing her, joking about how she could fall off or her seatbelt could snap. That totally freaks her out, and she begs to just do something else so they can go home in one piece. Minho steps up and plays the perfect boyfriend. He takes her on a quiet walk around the park just to help her calm down before they try again. Meanwhile, Yuri is having a miserable time. For the first time in her life, she has to wait in regular lines instead of getting VIP treatment. Dae playfully steps in and tells her to just trust him, promising to show her that the broke life actually has its perks. By the end of the day, after Minho takes Kitty on basically every other ride, they head back to the roller coaster to finally ride it with their friends. She tries her hardest to push her fear down, but the moment is completely ruined when someone mentions the literature exam grades just dropped. She panics. She's so terrified that she can't even bring herself to check her phone in front of them, and she just abruptly walks away without saying a word. While wandering around by herself, she stumbles across Marius sitting completely alone. She sits down next to him and calls him out. "You could have just admitted you were scared of the coaster too, man." Surprisingly, this breaks the ice. The two of them finally open up and clear the air. She even vents to him about how stressed she is over her midterm grades, knowing that failing means losing her scholarship. But suddenly, something clicks in her head. She realizes she can't let a couple of test scores dictate her entire life. She pulls out her phone, opens the results, and discovers she passed. She is absolutely ecstatic and wants to run back to tell Minho. But before she leaves, she makes sure to apologize to Marius for misjudging him all this time. She heads back to her friends, finally conquers her fear, and rides the coaster with them. She even manages to snap the exact same picture her mom took. Later that night, back at the dorms, Minho and Kitty agree to hang out. But out of nowhere, Eunice texts Minho. She tells him she needs to talk to him right now because there's a massive disaster. Minho ends up lying to Kitty. He tells her Marius had a sudden emergency and needs him, then rushes off. The problem is, Kitty happens to be walking past the window. She looks out and sees the two of them standing together in the garden, and it's not just a casual chat. Eunice is crying and Minho is comforting her. Eunice is completely panicking because she suspects she might be pregnant from their trip to Paris. The next morning, Kitty wakes up terrified from a nightmare where Eunice and Minho are hooking up. When she tells Yuri about it, Yuri is shocked. She tells Kitty she's losing her mind, and it's crazy to even link those two together. She advises Kitty to just talk to him directly if she's really that worried. Yuri is also in a great mood because the designer she's assisting reached out to her directly for a job. She feels like she's officially making her way into the fashion world. Kitty goes to find Minho, determined to save their relationship before it falls apart. She casually asks him how his night with Marius went. Minho instantly realizes she suspects something. He quickly tries to fix his mistake and admits, "Honestly, I lied to you. I was actually with Eunice." He pulls a small necklace box out of his pocket and says, "I just wanted to get her opinion on this gift I bought you." Of course, Kitty forgets about everything else and just focuses on the gift. She keeps thanking him, genuinely surprised that he cared this much. Meanwhile, Yuri shows up at the office only to find out Iso specifically requested her just to dog sit while she's out of town. It completely breaks her heart to realize this is the big job she landed, but she swallows her pride and casually agrees to do it anyway. At the end of the day, the whole group gets together at Day's dad's brand new restaurant. Kitty decides to try and do something right, so she invites her grandmother to dinner with her and Ji-yoon. But things get awkward fast. She realizes the two of them have actually been fighting ever since Ji-yoon rebelled and moved away to work at the school. Her grandmother is a little too controlling and still hasn't accepted Ji-yoon's choices. Naturally, her grandmother spends the entire dinner throwing subtle insults. Ji-yoon finally gets too upset, stands up, and walks out. Kitty chases after her, apologizing for interfering, but Ji-yoon is totally understanding. She tells Kitty it isn't her fault. Her grandmother just wants to dictate her life and force her to live a certain way. Right then, Eunice comes running toward them. Paparazzi have been tailing her taxi everywhere. Minho immediately steps up and heads outside to handle them himself. But then Eunice completely messes everything up. She looks at Kitty and asks, "Wow, that's a beautiful necklace. Who got it for you?" Kitty just freezes. All that doubt comes rushing right back in. If this is Eunice's first time seeing the necklace, what exactly was Minho doing with her last night? Since bad news always comes in waves, Yuri suddenly realizes the dog has vanished from her bag. She and her friend frantically tear the restaurant apart looking for it. By pure luck, while searching near the trash cans, she uncovers a disaster way worse than a missing dog. She hears Eunice crying to Minho, telling him, "If this gets out, my entire career is ruined." Yuri finally tracks down the dog, grabs Kitty, and pulls her into the bathroom to tell her what she just heard. Together, they connect the dots, especially after finding a discarded pregnancy test sitting right in the trash. Kitty loses her mind. She marches right up to Minho and demands to know if Eunice is pregnant. "How could you tell me you were just friends and then do something like this?" Before he can even try to explain himself, she rips the necklace off and throws it right at him. Later that night, when everyone is back home, Kitty talks to Day. She tells him she suspects Minho cheated on her with Eunice during their trip to Paris, but Day shuts that down immediately. He tells her that's impossible, because he was the one with Eunice the entire trip, and that's when the truth finally hits Kitty. If Eunice really is pregnant, the baby is Day's. Minho was literally just being a good friend and trying to help her through it. Day heads straight to Eunice's house. He tells her that if it's true, he's fully ready to step up and take responsibility, but she quickly reassures him that she isn't pregnant at all. It was just a scare and everything is fine. Kitty realizes she made a massive mistake and tries to salvage whatever is left with Minho. She apologizes for doubting him, but he has officially reached his breaking point. He tells her, I spend all my time putting in the effort to reassure you, but nothing ever works. Because the problem is with you, not me, and because of that, I don't want to do this anymore." She goes back to her room, completely breaking down in tears. She never imagined things would escalate to this level. And of course, in moments like this, there's no one better to call than her sister. 2 days later, Kitty has completely isolated herself in her room. She refuses to talk to anyone. She even tried texting Minho, begging for one more chance to fix things, but he just left her on red. Suddenly, she smells something familiar. It's the exact same cookies her sister used to bake for her when she was little. And the crazy part is, the smell is real. She opens her door and finds Lara Jean standing right there in the kitchen, pulling a fresh batch of cookies out of the oven. Kitty is incredibly touched. She never expected her sister to fly out this fast. She runs over and gives her a massive hug. Lara Jean just smiles and tells her, "We are going to sit down and you're going to tell me everything, but first you need to go take a shower." After Kitty tells her the whole story, Lara Jean immediately takes her side. "Look, if he doesn't realize your worth, then we'll just make him realize it. Besides, he's the one who lied first and planted that doubt in your head to begin with." She tells Kitty they need to clear the air, grab some lunch with Ji-yoon, and then Kitty needs to sit down and finally finish her NYU application essay. Meanwhile, Eunice has made a massive decision. She's quitting music. She tells Minho that she just can't deal with the reality of fame anymore. She wants her quiet life back, far away from the crowds and the cameras. Minho completely respects her choice and agrees to let her go. This is definitely the exact opposite of what his dad wants. His dad tells him to just pressure her using the penalty clause in her contract, forcing her to keep working whether she likes it or not. But when Minho refuses to do it, his dad just fires him right along with her. Meanwhile, Gigi gives Yuri some pretty solid advice. She suggests Yuri enter a beginner's fashion competition. She tells her it makes no sense to spend her entire life working as an assistant when she clearly has so much raw talent. But Yuri is hesitant, because taking a huge step like that requires a lot of courage and confidence. Later, when Kitty and Lara Jean meet up with Ji-yoon, they notice she's acting a bit strange. She keeps running to the bathroom, and she straight up refuses to eat any raw meat. Lara Jean just casually looks at her and says, "I have a pregnant friend who acts exactly like you." That's when everything clicks for Kitty. She finally realizes whose pregnancy test was sitting in the restaurant bathroom. She just asks her directly, "Are you really pregnant? I'm not trying to snoop, I swear, I just want to help." Ji-yoon gets really emotional and starts crying, because she actually is pregnant, and Alex is the father. She admits that they were actually dating way before she even started working at the school, but they had to pretend to hate each other just to get around the strict staff rules, and naturally she is terrified. She knows if her grandmother catches even a hint of this, all hell is going to break loose. She can already hear the lectures about whether she went there to work or to have babies. Kitty comforts her and encourages her to just tell Alex first. Once he knows, they can figure the rest out together. When Minho gets back to the dorms, he finds Dae looking completely defeated. He just found out he didn't get into the college he applied to. Minho steps up and makes a suggestion. "Why don't you actually chase that singing dream you've been burying?" he asks. In return, Minho says he'll handle the music production, and they can just start a team together. Dae gets incredibly hyped, mostly because he's just been waiting for someone to finally believe in him. As for Alex, when he finally finds out about the baby, he is absolutely thrilled. He couldn't care less about the school rules or the consequences. Lara Jean watches all of this unfold and gets really emotional. She looks at Kitty and tells her, "You've managed to accomplish so much at such a young age. You moved to a foreign country all by yourself. You basically built a brand new family, and you've brought so much happiness to the people around you." She reassures her that no matter what happens next, everything is going to be okay. Those words really get to Kitty. She channels all those raw emotions and immediately sits down to write her college application essay. But the moment she hits send, a wave of hesitation washes over her. She admits to her sister, "I still have no idea where I actually want to end up," because deep down, a huge part of her still wants things to work out with Minho. Lara Jean just gives it to her straight. Nobody knows what the future holds. The most important thing is that you follow your heart and just experience things exactly as they come. The next day, Kitty walks back into school completely recharged. Her sister's visit really did wonders for her, but her mood crashes the second Minho walks right past her without even saying hello. And it doesn't stop there. When she walks into the cafeteria, she realizes her entire friend group is falling apart. Mihi and Madison are sitting completely apart from each other. And these two are normally glued at the hip. And it's not just them, even Q and Jin are fighting. It honestly feels like the whole crew has been cursed. She starts desperately brainstorming ways to fix everything. Right at that moment, her phone buzzes. It's a text from Yuri saying she desperately needs help with her fashion show. Kitty rushes over to her room and finds a complete disaster zone. Yuri has practically torn the place apart, with clothes thrown all over the floor. She hasn't managed to finalize a single design yet, and the show is literally in 2 days. That's when it hits Kitty. She just found the perfect excuse to force all her friends to make up. Because Yuri doesn't just need designs, she needs models, someone to handle hair and makeup, and someone to run the music. And obviously, there's no better crew for the job than their own friend group. So Kitty goes around convincing them one by one until she gets every single person on board. She puts Day in charge of the finances to calculate the exact costs of everything. He's super excited about it, especially since he already manages his dad's restaurant. He takes the opportunity to push her a little, asking, "Aren't you going to ask Minho for help too?" But she completely refuses. Her pride is already in the dirt. She tried reaching out to him multiple times and he completely ignored her. So Day decides to step up and handle it himself. He goes straight to the studio where Minho has been spending all his time lately. He walks in and makes a pitch. Instead of sitting here completely stuck trying to write a new song, why don't you produce the music for Yuri's fashion show? He frames it as a challenge to help him break his creative block. Even though Minho has been totally consumed by a feeling of failure, he actually agrees. When the day of the show finally arrives and they all gather in one place, the tension is thick. Nobody can stand each other. They are basically snapping at every single word. Kitty is just walking around playing peacekeeper, trying to soothe everyone like a tired mom. All right, guys, let's just push through and get this over with. And of course, in the middle of all this stubbornness, Marius and Jin start physically fighting over a jacket. They both want to wear the exact same design for the runway. One pulls from this side, the other pulls from that side, and suddenly the jacket rips completely in half. Instead of treating this like a complete disaster, Yuri actually gets a brand new idea. She looks at Kitty and says, "Remember when I felt like my soul was ripped apart after losing everything? And throwing myself into work was the only way I pulled myself back together? That is exactly what the theme for this collection is going to be." She grabs all the pieces she already made and starts tearing them up to make some quick, edgy adjustments. And naturally, right in the middle of all this creative chaos, the guys finally start cooling off. They drop the attitude and focus entirely on the runway show. Meanwhile, Minho finally arrives with the flash drive containing all the runway music. Dai instantly sees an opportunity. He tells Minho he needs to hand the drive over to Yuri personally, but he deliberately pushes him into the office where Kitty is waiting. He's hoping the two of them will finally talk and clear the air. Kitty looks at him and explains that she spent all morning trying to force their friends to make up. "So I figure this is the perfect moment for us to make up too." The thing that bothers her the most is that she's tried to apologize multiple times, but he just kept refusing to accept it. He finally explains his side. Once doubt enters a relationship, it can never really go back to the way it was, because that is exactly what happened with everyone else in his life. Whether it was his dad abandoning him in a split second, or his mom constantly leaving him behind to work on another continent, Kitty completely understands that this stems from the way he was raised, but she reminds him that at the end of the day, she made a mistake, and everyone deserves the right to make a mistake and fix it. Besides, she adds, "You made a mistake too. The second we had our first real fight, you decided to just give up on me." He actually apologizes, realizing she has a valid point, but despite their whole heart-to-heart, his mind is made up. He isn't getting back together with her. She respects his decision and lets it go. Later, Kitty steps out to check on Yuri right before the show starts. Yuri is incredibly nervous, having no idea how the crowd is going to react, but she pulls a really sweet move. She looks at Kitty and says, "I have one last favor to ask. I originally made this dress for your 18th birthday, but honestly, I want you to wear it tonight and be part of the collection." Kitty is absolutely thrilled. She never imagined Yuri would do something like that for her. The moment Kitty steps out onto the runway in that dress, Minho forgets absolutely everything. He just stands there, completely unable to take his eyes off her. As for ISO, the head designer, she is absolutely blown away by the runway looks. She publicly introduces Yuri as her own protege. For Yuri, that is a massive, life-changing success. At the end of the night, Gigi notices Minho staring off in Kitty's direction. She gives him a quick piece of advice. Don't waste any more time. Go make up with her before she slips through your fingers. He actually listens. He walks over and asks Kitty if they can talk. But unfortunately, the timing is terrible. Right at that exact moment, Kitty gets an email from NYU. She got accepted. Seeing how insanely happy she is, Minho quickly realizes that since she's leaving anyway, there's no point in digging up the past. So he just swallows his feelings, congratulates her, and leaves it at that. Moving forward, Kitty throws all her energy into planning her 18th birthday party. But every time she runs into one of her friends to invite them, they come up with some random excuse. Apparently, nobody is free that day. Since our girl is way too optimistic, she instantly figures it out. She knows they're just playing dumb to throw her a surprise party. She decides to just play along and see how far they take it. Even Minho makes up an excuse, claiming he's busy flying out to Los Angeles to visit his mom. Meanwhile, Eunice is studying with Day. Their relationship finally leveled up, and they're officially dating. Suddenly, Minho walks in and totally crashes their romantic vibe. Eunice takes the opportunity to drop some big news. A bunch of other artists have reached out to her, asking if Minho could be their manager too. She asks what he thinks about it. He feels incredibly torn, mostly because he had just made up his mind to focus entirely on music production. Around the same time, Kitty is celebrating her birthday with Ji-yoon and Alex. Wanting to return the favor for everything they've done, she insists on talking to her grandmother to force a reconciliation. And it actually works. The second the grandmother finds out Ji-yoon is pregnant, her strict walls come down and she immediately agrees to make peace. Later that evening, Q stops by to pick Kitty up for a night out since all their friends supposedly bailed on her. The second she walks into the cafe, surprise, everyone is gathered there waiting for her. And of course, Minho is right there with them. She is absolutely glowing. This is exactly the birthday she'd been dreaming of. Minho tries to smooth things over and asks her to dance. Right in the middle of it, he asks her, "Do you really want to go to NYU?" She explains that during the time they were broken up, she spent a lot of time thinking about what she actually wanted for her future. That's why she applied. She just wanted to have the option open if she decided to leave. But Minho is still completely lost. He has no idea what he wants to do next. And because of that lingering uncertainty, he holds back from asking her to get back together. The next day, he gets a massive wake-up call. Day casually mentions that she's already leaving to spend the summer with her family. He sprints straight to the subway station. There is absolutely no way he's letting her leave before they figure things out. On the way, he sends her a text, an audio file of the song he wrote specifically for her birthday. Against all odds, he actually catches up to her just in time. He looks right at her and lays it all out. "Let's make the absolute most out of our senior year. I want to spend every single moment together." She can barely believe he finally said it out loud and she agrees instantly. But then, he completely flips the script. This time, he's the one asking if he can travel with her. He wants to spend the entire summer together. She is beyond thrilled, knowing he's finally going to meet her family.